Thank you, Charlie. Thanks for you and your students' great sharing. Yang, are you there? Let me share the screen first. Okay, let's move to our next speaker, Mr. Xing Wei. Mr. Xing Wei is founder and CEO of Ivy Max Academy. For more than a decade in this industry, Mr. Wei has been helping aspiring Asian students get admitted to Harvard, Princeton, Yale, UPenn, Stanford, MIT, Caltech, UC Berkeley, UCLA, and other prestigious universities. Let's welcome Mr. Wei and their students to give his presentation and showcase.
Thank you very much. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great. So I'm honored to be invited to speak to you today, along many of the previous distinguished speakers. Now, like Professor Hu, Dr. Yang, and Charlie, many of them spoke about the wonderful scientific research and discovery journeys that they have been embarking on. Now, today is the kickoff for the science fair, right? CASPA Science Fair. So what is the connection between all these wonderful scientific discoveries, the wonderful research work many of these innovators are doing, and the science fair, the science project you are going to be embarking on as part of this competition? And hopefully my few thoughts today will make that connection, will bridge today's science fair activities that you do this summer and all of the wonderful research and scientific discovery work perhaps you'll be doing in the future. Anyway, and that bridge is why we are participating in such a science fair project this summer, and why today's science fair project you may be working on, however small, may lead to tomorrow's big discoveries for humankind. And on the screen, you see the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, right? The 17 goals. And I hope many of you, when you work on that science project, you understand why you're working on it, okay? Many of the previous speakers spoke about what they are doing and how they are doing it even, but the why is critical. And hope these science projects you work on this summer will lead to much bigger discoveries in the future that may indeed solve some of these challenging issues we face as society. And of course, some of you may have a simple goal in mind, right? You want to win the science competition, the science fair competition, or like Professor Hu mentioned earlier, maybe the science project or the science efforts will get you into a top-tier college. But remember, the colleges like Stanford, here you see, right? They want to know also the reason or why you have been working on these science projects, right? Declare a mission, not just a major, Stanford says. So they want to know not only what you wanted to study at Stanford or in any top-tier colleges like Berkeley or many others, but what are you carrying on your shoulder? What is your lifelong mission? So hopefully through this summer's science fair project, participation at the CASPA Science Fair competition, you develop that mission in your life and really start to work on a long and rewarding journey of scientific discoveries. And kind of along that lines, I hope the science projects you'll be working on and all the challenges you face will not scare you away, and really will be always remembered with fond memories, like what I'm showing here. One of CMU's computer science professors, actually Dr. Randy Pausch, was taken away by cancer a few years back. And there was a great book about his last lecture, in which he talked about all of the wonderful work he did actually all started when he was a kid, when he was able to continue his life's work to realize his childhood dreams. And besides doing your summer science projects, I hope all of you can also take some time, give that book a read this summer, okay? For your reading pleasure, really take a look at Dr. Pausch's last lecture book. And of course, Serve Better Thy People and Thy Country, the book that we have put out to really help high schoolers not only to generate successful college application essays, but more in a way to help them framework their thoughts and perhaps to clarify their perspectives so they know what their mission is in life. So when they embark on a scientific discovery journey, they know the reason behind their efforts. And that's really the only way to succeed. And that's really the better way to not only enjoy the fun and realize your childhood dreams later on in college and beyond college. Perhaps you can also be like Charlie and like many of the previous speakers, work at Google, work at many of the innovative technology companies in Silicon Valley, but even more importantly, beyond that, having a successful and rewarding career in high technology, but really creating some innovative solutions to help all of us, to help humankind to address many of the challenging issues going forward. So I hope through this CASPA Science Fair this summer, you will begin to really undertake the scientific challenges and the scientific discovery work, and start the long and rewarding journey of your science career. And with that, I wanted to introduce our student, Catherine Kerr, who is a rising sophomore. So even though she's still a pretty young student in high school, but she has also already embarked on the science fair and scientific research journey, and has also won honors in the regional science fair. So without further ado, Catherine, please.
Okay, thank you. Can I share my screen? Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. See. Okay, hello everyone. My name is Yutong, and you can also call me Catherine. So yeah, it's really a pleasure for me to be here to share my science fair experience. And here's about me. I'm a rising sophomore at Northwood High School in Irvine. And me and my partner, Tian Chendong, had participated in Irvine Science Fair, Orange County, and California Science Fair in 2021 year. We also got a second place in Environmental Science Division, and we are really surprised by this award, and we are really happy about that. So let's go right into our research process. So the first step we did is brainstorm a lot of ideas. So where we get our idea is from the Silverado fire in Irvine last year in October. So after that, there's a large portion of the hill beside our school have been burned down, and there's only ashes left in there. So we really wonder about what will happen to that hill, and will the vegetation go back to their original state. So we start our experiment about how does the fire affect the soil and plant growth. The next step we did is we make a draft and outline for the whole topic, like what we are going to do the experiment on. And later we start to follow the scientific method, which is those steps, and I will talk more about those when I go through the presentation. Okay, so I just put our presentation slide incorporate into this presentation, and I'll quickly go over them. Okay, so this is the topic slide. And the first step of the scientific method is list a question. So this is our question about if the soil is burned by the fire, what will happen to the nutrient inside the soil? And how would the plant growth be affected if they are planted in the burned soil? After listing the problem, it is really helpful to list out the independent variable, which is what we are going to change throughout the experiment, dependent variable, which is the result of the experiment, and also the controlled variable, which is what we keep constant throughout our experiment. So after the question, we are going to conduct a background research. Before doing the background research, I really recommend it list out all the questions you want to find out the answer about and what you are curious learning about. So for example, we list those 5 questions about how the impact of the wildfire and many aspects of the wildfire on our world, on the soil, on the nutrient. So, and then we start the research. Another thing I really recommended is also finding those background research from different sources beside the internet. We also have the background research done from the book, journal, magazine, television channel, and and I found that really helpful because you can get a more complete understanding of one single topic and learn the different perspective of that. Another thing we did before in the beginning of our experiment is start to think, why does our project matter? We started to relate that to our real world. And so, yeah, this is a hard part and I will talk more about that later. But we start to think about that earlier. So during our experiment, we can do more and more research on that. Okay, so the third step is list a hypothesis using if and then statement. And the whole hypothesis, more detail is better. For example, we talk about taller, having more leaf, higher germination rate instead of just the plant grow better. So yeah, that's about hypothesis. So the procedure, which is how our experiment work. So the first step, we take the soil from different side to unburned side and to burned side. We also create different layer of the soil, for example, the ash on the top or the soil on the bottoms to simulate the nature After collecting the soil, we use the soil test kit to test the soil. In the later, we are going to before the burn and after the burn. Okay, procedure number 2 is each type of soil have 5 pods, each pod have 4 seeds, and we start to plant them and record the result of it. And this is the result. We could see that the plant in the burnt soil grow generally better than the plant in unburned soil because they are having larger leaf, greener, and taller. Okay, so for the result, I also recommended generate the graph, data, table, and use the picture to support all your result because it is more visualized and straightforward for people to understand that. So I'll just quickly go over them. And okay, so the next step is discussion, which is you reflect on your experiment and think, are there any other variable that impact your result beside your experiment? For example, there's a strong wind which blow down the stem and so on. And what do which part of your experiment have went wrong and how can you improve it? Like problem like a question like that. Another session is analysis, which is why do you got your result? So we incorporate into conclusion. We say that the change in nutrient level, for example, the increase in nitrogen and like how the nutrient had changed led to our result of having greener leaf, larger leaf area, and taller leaf. So our conclusion is that the plant in the burn soil grow better by having greener leaf, larger leaf area, taller than the plant in the unburned soil because the change in the nutrient level. Okay, so here's the last step, which is reflection and application. For the reflection, you are going to reflect on your whole project and develop more questions for your later research. For example, like what can be improved and what can be having more research on, and do you have any other question regarding your own project? Okay, so the application, which is I talked about before, why does our project matter? So there's a slide later I will talk about this, but basically you're going to relate your project to the real life application and how it contributes to the world and society. It don't need to be a really direct connection, but you have to understand how it has impact on the world, and I will talk about this later. Okay, so here's the reference cited for that. And here's the one we just go over. Yeah, I'll move on. Okay, so what do I learn? So this year is actually my first year experience in science fair, and this is really, I think this is really helpful, and I learned a lot from them. First, from my project, from my experiment, I got to practice my skill to do the research, to conduct the experiment, and also to work with my partner. The collaboration and communication skill. Most importantly, I know the connection between the science experiment and real life problem. So at first, me and my partner really struggled thinking about how does it connect to real life, because we feel like our project is just so simple, just planning the plan, and how does it connect to them? Throughout the whole experiment, we do a lot of research on that, and we found that the wildfire could connect to how the human deliberate cause of wildfire, for example, prescribed burn, which is kind of good, and also slash and burn, the agricultural practice, how it's really bad for the environment and the soil quality, and how people start to live in danger zone, how the deforestation led to vicious cycle, and how does fire have good side and bad side, how there's air pollution and how it could benefit the productivity of ecosystem. Although those are might not that have a really strong directly connection with our project, but we asked the question and we find out the question by ourselves, and we can apply that to the real life. So, okay. I also learned a lot from the interview and the whole event. We did 4 interviews with many different judges, and it's not only practice my critical thinking and logical thinking skill, but also the communication skill. Most importantly, I got to see things from different perspectives, because the judges have asked many questions, and some of the question is the one me and my partner never thought about that before. So it is really eyes-opening, and we got to see things from different point of view and different aspect of one single topic. Okay, from the whole event, there's open house where I learned a lot from other people projects. And I also want to talk a little bit about award. Although our project is not that deep in that field, and it seems kind of easy, but I think what we did best is that we put a lot of effort in that, we do a lot of research, and we become the expert on that field. And I think that's what really important for the beginner in the science fair. And another thing we did is that we take something from the everyday life, like the inspiration of the wildfire, and I think those are all what value a lot. And yeah, that's what I learned. Okay, so the last point, I'm gonna quickly go over them. So it's just some few tips. The first one is how to find your topic and how to generate idea. First, you are going to find a big topic. big idea of that. The best way to find that is from your interesting field and subject or the topic that curious you. For example, you are really interested in physics and you are learning projectile motion, and you want to find out how the angle of the launch affect the range, and you can totally conduct a small experiment on that to find out the answer. Another way to find a big idea is get the inspiration from the daily event and be more aware of the world around you, because you might be curious of some problem that you see during the real life, and you can do research on that. Then you are going to expand the topic by listing some specific topic from that. For example, the big idea is wildfire, and the topic could be the topography, be the wind, be how the fire affect ecosystem, how the fire affect soil and plant growth. And you are going to pick the one that interests you the most and you think you can do best on that. What we did is also we asked our science teacher for advice and later decide on the topic. Okay, so the last one is during the experiment and research process. So you have to follow the scientific method because it could make your project more logical and organized. And taking many notes and make observation during the experiment is really important. Then you won't panic at the last moment when you are doing the summary report or a presentation. Time management is also really important. You can make your own timetable, set a goal for the month, for the week, for the day. Here's a small example of the timetable me and my partner did during the winter break. We set a goal for every day and we note what needs to be improved on. And we also take some small break during someday. Yeah. Okay, the last one is presentation. I believe many people is already very good at it, and I just want to know that do many rehearse and manage your presentation time. Okay, so here's the end of my presentation. Thank you everyone for listening, and it is really a great pleasure for me to be here to share my experience. And science fair is this year's science fair is really a fun experience to me, and I really learned a lot. Thank you.